Hello students, I am Vidya from English Magus. Welcome to our video lesson on Going Places by A.R. Barton, Chapter 8 in Class 12 CBSE English Core Book, Flamingo. In this lesson, we will explore the themes, characters, and literary techniques used in this captivating story. We'll discuss how the protagonist, Sophie, navigates her dreams and the harsh realities of life, and we'll delve into the figures of speech that enrich the narrative. Let's embark on this literary journey together and uncover the profound messages A.R. Barton has woven into this tale. Let's get started by knowing a little about its author and theme. A.R. Barton is a modern writer who lives in Zurich and writes in English. He is known for his insightful short stories that delve into the lives and struggles of ordinary people. He has a keen eye for detail and a profound understanding of human emotions, which he skillfully incorporates into his narratives. Barton's works often explore themes of aspiration, social class, and the contrast between dreams and reality. In the story Going Places, Barton explores the theme of adolescent fantasizing and hero worship. Before we dive into the chapter's detailed explanation, let's first explore its central theme. The primary theme of Going Places is the conflict between dreams and reality. Sophie, the protagonist, lives in a world of fantasy, dreaming of a glamorous future that contrasts sharply with her mundane reality. The story explores the nature of adolescent aspirations and the inevitable disillusionment that comes with growing up. It also touches on the theme of social class and the limited opportunities available to working-class youths. Through Sophie's character, Barton illustrates the universal yearning for a better life and the pain of unfulfilled dreams. Now, let's proceed with a paragraph-by-paragraph explanation of the chapter. Before we start, I encourage you to pause and read the text on each slide before listening to the explanation. This method will enhance your comprehension and help you follow a detailed analysis more effectively. Let's begin. As the chapter begins, the author introduces Sophie, a young girl with big dreams, talks to her friend Jancy about opening a boutique. Jancy is skeptical, knowing their financial limitations. Sophie imagines herself as a successful manager or even an actress, despite the practical difficulties Jancy points out. This section highlights Sophie's optimism and Jancy's realism. In the next scene as they walk home, Jancy reminds Sophie that their future is near and shop work doesn't pay well. Sophie dreams bigger, considering being an actress or fashion designer, believing these jobs would give her more money and allow her to pursue her boutique dream. Jancy stands in the rain, concerned for her friend. In this scene we learn as soon as Sophie reaches home, she shares her boutique dream with her family. Her father, busy eating, scoffs at the idea, saying she should buy a decent house instead if she ever has money. Little Derek agrees, and their mother sighs, reflecting the family's disbelief in Sophie's ambitions. In this scene we learn Sophie's parents' financial condition is not so good. Sophie observes her mother working in the kitchen. She notices the contrast between her mother's delicate apron bow and her tired, stooped back. The room is small, steamy, and cluttered, with Sophie's father at the table and dirty dishes piled up. Feeling emotional, Sophie decides to find her brother, Jeff. In this scene we learn about Jeff, an apprentice mechanic, is working on his motorcycle in the next room. He rarely talks, keeping parts of his life mysterious. Sophie envies his silence and imagines the places he visits, even if they are just nearby areas. She yearns to explore these unknown places herself, finding them fascinating because they are beyond her reach. In this scene Sophie imagines Jeff meeting interesting, exotic people, even though he is reserved. She wishes to be closer to him and dreams of the day he might take her along. Despite her father's disapproval and Jeff's silence, Sophie feels destined for a larger world beyond her city. She dreams of riding with Jeff, feeling celebrated and welcomed by the world. In this scene we see Jeff, focused on fixing a motorcycle part, looks doubtful when Sophie claims she met the famous footballer Danny Casey. She describes their encounter in the arcade, emphasizing his gentle, green eyes. Jeff is skeptical and reminds Sophie of their father's disapproval of her wild stories. Sophie, however, remains excited about her encounter. As the scene continues, Sophie describes Danny Casey to Jeff, mentioning his green eyes and height. Their father comes in, fresh from washing, and turns on the TV. When Jeff tells their father about Sophie meeting Danny Casey, their father reacts with disbelief and disdain, comparing it to an old story he once told about meeting a famous footballer. In this scene Jeff defends Sophie's story about Danny Casey. Their father, still doubtful, reminisces about another famous footballer, expressing concerns about young players facing distractions. Sophie confidently adds that Danny Casey is going to buy a shop, which makes her father even more skeptical. Despite the disbelief, Sophie insists her story is true, with Jeff reluctantly agreeing. In this scene we see their father, unconvinced, accuses Sophie of making up wild stories. Jeff explains how Sophie met Danny Casey in the arcade, but their father remains doubtful. He warns Sophie about getting into trouble with her fanciful tales. Despite this, Sophie firmly believes in her story, hoping Jeff supports her, even if he has his doubts. In this scene we see Sophie and Jeff in his room. Sophie asks him to keep her meeting with Danny Casey a secret. Jeff doubts her story, pointing out that Casey likely has many admirers and wouldn't share such details with a girl. Sophie insists Casey is different and quiet. She recalls how she recognized him by his accent and asked for his autograph, which he promised to give her next week. In these lines Sophie shares more details about her encounter with Danny Casey, emphasizing his Irish accent and how they talked about clothes in a shop window. She says Casey seemed lonely and agreed to meet her again to give an autograph. Jeff remains skeptical, finding the story improbable. Sophie wishes Jeff cared more about his appearance, as she considers him handsome but unkempt. In this scene Sophie's family goes to watch United play. Sophie, her father, and Derek stand near the goal, while Jeff sits with his friends. United wins 2-0, with Danny Casey scoring the second goal brilliantly. Sophie feels proud and happy, and Jeff is ecstatic about the win. Their father's excitement shows how much they all admire Casey's talent. In this scene we see Sophie's family traveling back home. On the bus, someone wishes Casey were English. Derek tells his mother Ireland will win the World Cup, and their father goes to the pub to celebrate. The next week, Jancy confronts Sophie, saying Jeff told her brother Frank about Sophie meeting Casey. Sophie is startled, as she wanted to keep it a secret. She reluctantly admits it to Jancy. The story moves to the next scene. Sophie feels betrayed by Jeff for telling Jancy about Casey. She believes Jancy will spread the news, ruining the special secret. Jancy promises to keep it confidential, but Sophie fears her father's reaction if he finds out. Jancy is surprised, thinking Sophie's father would be proud, not angry, about her meeting with a famous footballer. In this scene Sophie realizes that Jeff has kept the most significant part of her story, about arranging to meet Danny Casey, secret from Jancy. This makes Sophie feel relieved and grateful, thinking that Jeff does believe in her and respects her feelings. She downplays the encounter with Casey, mentioning only the failed autograph attempt. Sophie worries about the potential chaos at home if her father knew about her fantasy. Jancy promises to keep Sophie's secret, emphasizing their trust. In this scene we see Sophie walking by the canal at night, in hope of meeting for Danny Casey. It's a place she often visited as a child, and she finds it perfect for a secret meeting. As she waits, she imagines his arrival, feeling excited. Eventually, she begins to consider the possibility that he might not come, feeling a pang of doubt. In this scene we see Sophie sitting by the canal, wishing for Danny Casey to come and feeling the time pass. She starts doubting his arrival, remembering how no one believed her story. She worries about what she will say if he doesn't show up. Despite this, she comforts herself with the memory of their encounter, believing it was real, regardless of others' doubts. In this scene we learn Sophie still waiting for Casey. She begins to accept that Danny Casey might not come. She feels a deep sadness, realizing she will have to live with the burden of others' disbelief. She imagines her slow walk home and Jeff's disappointment. Even though she knows the truth, the sadness of being doubted weighs heavily on her. In this scene we see Sophie dealing with the pain of her unfulfilled fantasy. Sadly, Sophie climbs the steps to the street, passing her father's bicycle outside the pub. She is glad he won't be home when she returns. She replays her encounter with Danny Casey in her mind, recalling his gentle, green eyes, freckled nose, and shy smile. She remembers asking for his autograph and their brief conversation. In the last scene we see Sophie vividly recalls Danny Casey's voice and presence, remembering how he didn't have a pen for an autograph. She stood alone afterward, replaying their meeting and feeling captivated by his innocence and genius. She sees him scoring a goal last Saturday, imagining the crowd's excitement and approval, which makes her experience feel even more real and cherished. With this, we conclude the chapter. Here is the list of literary devices used in Going Places. Pause the video and review them to reinforce your understanding. Stay tuned for more engaging explanations in our upcoming lessons. Thank you for joining us. If you found the lesson helpful, please like and subscribe. See you in the next lesson.